show is about to begin. Enjoy.
Michael O'Grady, I Creativi.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 11 of Michael O'Grady and the Creatives. These go to 11, finally hitting in the double digits and everything. And it's a new decade of episodes, or whatever you want to call it, the teens in right now. And today is actually, well, it's kind of a redo episode, actually, because we did this episode as episode 10 at first, but silly me, I didn't have enough storage on my Zoom cloud space, whatever that is, and our whole episode was a wash. So we're kind of redoing it. And actually, I didn't even need to tell you that because, well, you guys didn't know until now, so I just gave it away. But for episode 11, my next guest is an actor and technical director with an extensive experience in script writing for films and television series like The Mountain, Devil, and Red. He is also a decorated police officer and was an officer for more than a decade and was a detective in the Special Operations Division and Criminal Investigative Division. I knew I was going to screw that line up. And if that's not enough, he's also assisted the FBI and the U.S. Secret Service. Please welcome my next guest on Michael O'Grady and the Creatives, Mr. Morley Nelson. Morley, how are you, man?
Good. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm hanging, and actually, I don't. To be honest, I don't feel that great today. I made a mistake yesterday, where you ever do this? You brush your teeth, and then for some reason your brain and body go, "Hey, I'm hungry again," and then I ate a bunch of junk food right before I fell asleep, and today I feel like absolute crap, and I'm like, "Oh no." This is what getting older is like. This sucks. It's like a hangover, but just from eating junk food. And I was like, so all day I've been kind of feeling like sluggish.
Now, when you say junk food, what do you mean by
Oh,
junk
I
food?
meant like for some, okay, so again, this is what's weird. I brushed my teeth, and you figure your body and your brain is like, I'm done. Don't clog up my teeth and don't stain them and make them any worse. And then I, for some reason, was about ready to call it. And then, like, I went to the pantry, and as you know, and probably you know as a parent, there's a lot of junk food in the house in the pantry, just like snacks and stuff like that for kids. So I ended up eating all my daughter's snacks, like some Paw Patrol gummies and some Rice Krispie treats. And then there was something else too, and I forget what it was. But yeah, I was like, it'll be fine, it'll be okay. Turns out it's not. It's only built for small children, all that sugar.
Right. Gummies.
Yeah,
Gummies always hit the spot.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was like, I tried to have self-control and be like, I'm not going to do this because, they're for her. But now I need to go
Mhm.
to the grocery store and buy some more and
It's,
have some self-control.
yeah, right.
Yeah. How you
Well, if
holding
it,
up? Sorry, I was going to say, for those you don't know, we're doing like this little Zoom call thing right now. Morley is in Minnesota right now. That's correct?
yes.
Make sure.
Yep.
How you guys holding up over there? How's it going for the summer of lockdown quarantine?
Well, it's different. We have a lot more space and a lot less people. We have, I think, around 6 million people in the entire state.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. So social distancing, physical distancing is a lot easier than it is in bigger cities. And there's
Right.
really no excuse. We have a lot of fantastic, beautiful outdoors, 10,000 or more lakes, beaches, trails. We have a very active outdoor community. So there's really, no reason not to get outside, enjoy the weather. It's in the 90s today. I think the heat index is like 101,
Oh,
102.
wow. Yeah.
So very humid, but
Yeah.
very enjoyable. Kids are out, outside playing in the pool, playing with the hose, playing with, whatever, getting hot,
Yeah.
collecting toads.
Kind of like a normal summer, almost like the
Yeah.
Midwest summer, even though you got to be careful and wear a mask when you go. You guys got to do
Yes.
you got to do all that when you go to the grocery store, you go out and about.
Yep. Always wear a mask.
Yeah, there
But
you go.
I think how old's your daughter?
2.5.
2.5. Okay. So mine's 1.5. And I always think it's cute when we go to like Costco or whatever. We're out, my 7-year-old son, my wife and I are masked up. And then she leans forward, like, okay, she has like a little Mickey Mouse or Mickey
Yeah.
Mouse mask.
Yeah.
And she goes like, to like put it on me, and you put it on and it's like so small,
Right.
but it's also kind of like, I took a picture of them, put it on my Instagram of my son and my daughter sitting in a Costco cart with these masks on, and you think like, oh man, like how do we get to this point
Right.
where we got these? It's just kind of like a strange phenomenon to have your children wearing masks inside a store.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
very weird thing. It's very, very strange. And I mean, kudos to you because I can't get mine to keep hers on. She won't leave it
yeah.
on. I mean,
Well,
there's forgiveness for the age though. Like
yes.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
So they understand if they're not masked up and everything. So, but
Right.
I can't get her to keep the mask on. I try just as
Yeah.
like a good precaution, but she won't do it.
Yeah. She doesn't. I think she's good for about 30 minutes on a good day, and
Oh,
then
really?
it's
Then it's
yeah,
like,
it comes
get it
off.
out of here.
Yeah,
I
or
don't want it.
she's biting it. You can see her little mouth
Oh, yeah.
biting the, you're like, okay,
I
that's
know.
probably not going to taste good.
It's so weird. And then like hopefully if this thing clears up with the vaccines or the antibodies and if all that stuff, I mean like pretty soon and hopefully let's say within like a year or less than a year, they're not even gonna remember.
No,
They're
no,
not gonna even know. Like hopefully that's the case. I don't want them growing up in a world where like this is the normal. We have to do
yeah,
this all the time. So I know, and that
hmm
was the thing here in LA, everything like started opening back up and then they went right back to hold on, close the tattoo shops, close the gyms, close all that stuff again because it's getting out of control. And I think if I'm correct right now, I think LA is in the worst shape right now, or at least one of the worst states that's in bad shape right now. I think,
yeah, yeah,
compared to everybody else. Because
yeah,
there's a lot of people out here who won't listen and are just like, F it.
uh,
Because it's like we're more populated and people are like going to the beach. I went to the beach the other day. I tried to be, safe and cautious and everything. But it
hmm
literally looked like, other than people walking around with their masks, it literally looked like normal.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And then, of
yeah,
course, like the outside dining, there was the dividers and all that stuff. And that was like
hmm
super strange. And I was just like, all right, make sure I got my
yeah,
mask on, but it was nice to get out. So,
yeah, yeah. It's a shame. Like the governor just issued a new mask mandate. Everyone shall wear masks indoors and so forth.
indoors?
Yeah. So anytime you're indoors in public,
Oh,
any
in
public
public.
place
Okay.
indoors, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That makes
So,
sense. Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. So it's
Eh,
yeah, strange times.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully it clears up soon and everybody does their part to be safe and, stay at
Yeah,
home and not be at risk and wear your masks if you're out in public. I get it. Like, let's speed it up. It's probably going to take some time, but, hopefully
yeah,
we'll get back to a new normal or
yeah,
whatever. But
yeah.
anyway, let
Yeah,
me let me get right into it real quick so we don't
sure.
waste our precious time on everything because I know I like to get sidetracked and I got to get better at that.
Right, right.
Um, as I was saying in the intro, so you're an actor and a technical director. And last time when we did the first trial run of this episode, you had a great story that you ended up telling me about working on a film and with a particular well-known actor. And this
Yeah,
actor asked you for a favor because you were on set as a technical director, asked you
yep,
for a favor because he didn't want to use up his points. And for those who don't know, can you explain to us, and you can
sure.
go ahead and give us your background as an actor,
Yeah,
and then what a technical director is, and what it is when an actor has points?
yeah, yeah. And you want to say his name so badly, don't you?
You know what? When you first told me this story, I didn't know who it was, so my
Yeah.
curiosity wasn't like. Actually, no. It feels a lot better. It feels a lot
Okay.
easier because you privately told me who it was, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I know, and everything. So
Right.
I'm cool with knowing and not telling any of you people and everything. Ha ha.
Right.
I know something you don't
Right.
know.
Privileged information. The
Right. Yeah.
so I got started off. I was a cop at the time, and I had this director and executive producer contact me and
Hmm.
ask like, "Hey, would you be interested? We don't know any. We don't. We'd love to have you on. We don't know anything about technical aspects that we need help with our film."
Right.
Um, and I was actually on my honeymoon, and I got the email, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I went back, and they're like, "Hey, if we pay for you to come to Toronto, will you help us out and whatever?" And I had no idea what it entailed, so I was like, "Sure, whatever."
Yeah.
So I go to Toronto to shoot that. That was the first movie I did, and that was Devil. It was M. Night Shyamalan produced, John Eric Dowdle directed
Oh,
movie.
okay.
and then executive produced by Drew Dowdle. So it was like a 20-30 million dollar budget. So it's like a
Big
substantial
movie.
Yeah. And I didn't know what I know at the time, right? Like, so I go up there and I'm just like I show up on set the same day as like the core actors.
Right.
And I get introduced, and basically for that was like a big learning experience curve for me, because it was like, this is what we want. And
Yeah.
so it essentially came down to like the main actor had never held a gun before.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was not just teaching technical aspects of like, this is how you hold a gun properly, this is how you do it, but why you do it. And then on top of that, he's a real method actor. So he wanted to know, what are you feeling and what are your motivations, and
Wow. Right.
when you get up in the morning, what are you thinking? And in this situation, how would you feel? And why do you do what you do? And we had some pretty hardcore conversations so he could get into his character.
Right.
And he was a great guy. He was really open and fun. And we ended up I'm wearing a Toronto PD hat. We ended up
There you
doing
go.
right along. Yeah, it's because it was shot in Toronto.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was shot in the sound stages. Pinewood, like Ridley Scott owns Pinewood Studios up there, and it's like sound stages. And then we also shot in the city, within the city of Toronto. And
Nice.
so one of the producers or associate producers had arranged a ride along with Toronto PD. And so we got hooked up with like the violent crimes unit, or the gang unit or somebody. And it was
Yeah.
a super nice guy. But
And this is you and the actor
yeah, so
on
we
the
go
ride along.
on the ride along. So we go along, and I've been the actor is supposed to be a Philadelphia PD cop, right?
Okay.
So, he's
Wow,
gonna,
Philly and
Yeah.
Toronto. That's a hell of a difference.
yeah, like he's supposed to be like hardcore, salty, seasoned cop, right?
Right.
And so up to this point, I've been telling him like, this is what it's like to be a cop, and this is what it's like to do, have 15 cases on your caseload, and this is what it's like to come up, and so I've been getting like the gritty of it, and this is like, this is the hard life. And so we go on this, they set us up with this like violent crime unit. We go in, and it's two guys in their unit, and they have strict gun laws in Canada, so essentially there's no guns in Canada,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's special hunting permits or whatever, like Germany does and stuff.
Yeah.
But we go in, and the cops don't bring their guns home with them. So the cop that we were
okay.
meeting with was a little late. So we go in, and we go to his first thing is they stop off in their like gun locker area. They have like a little kind of like locker room, but it's for guns. So they
Gotcha.
go in, and we're introducing each other, and we're talking. He's like, wow, what's it like to be a cop in the States? And he's like assumed that I was from NYPD for some reason. I never asked why, but he's like, oh, so
I'm not even gonna correct him.
right. I'm just like, yep. And he's just like, so how long you been a cop for? And wow, you cop now? And did you bring your gun? And I'm just like, no, I didn't bring my, like, what? Like, why would I bring my
Right.
gun to another country? Like, what?
Yeah.
So, and then he took his gun out. He had a Glock. And he pulled it out of the gun locker, and he said, "Oh, maybe you want to look at it." And I was just, and the actor looked at me like, "Here's a guy who's never handled guns." He's like, "Well, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to do that," whatever. And so I was like, I took the gun, and I'm like, "No, you're good. Like, it's yours." Like, so anyhow, I was like, "Well,
Wow.
this is going to be an interesting day."
Yeah.
And so we do the ride along, and at the end of the ride along, there was like, he was trying to find us a crime. And he couldn't, like, he's calling up all his buddies on patrol, and we got to see like one traffic stop, and I was just like, don't worry, the actors in the back seat, I'm just like, don't worry about it, like,
Oh, that's
so then after like 2 hours, the actor's like was very humble and hospitable and everything. He wasn't, he was by no means a bad attitude or kind of,
right. Yeah.
no ego. So we pull into the station, and he's like, well, I think we need to get going because I got to practice my lines and everything. And so the detective that was showing us around was pretty nice. He's like, super energetic, like, oh, hey, nice guy. And he's like, you guys wait in my car. I'm going to run up and get you some caps and some pens and whatever. And the actor's like, no, we don't. And he's like, no, let me get you. So he runs off, and I'm in the front seat, and the actor's in the back seat. And the second the guy leaves, he's like, dude, this guy doesn't, like, there's no crime in Toronto. Like, these guys are not cops. Like, he's like, and I'm just like, oh, no. Like, he's just like, what? He's like, you telling me he could survive in like any city and it was just like, so then we get out of the car. I was like, get out. So we get out of the car. I'm like, yeah, the back seats are microphoned. So they record, like, he's probably listening to us when he went up there, whatever. And so sure enough, the guy comes back and he's like, oh, here's some hats, whatever.
Are you did he totally
Yeah.
pick? Oh my
God.
God.
Like, there's no question. So the actor's like,
Wow.
whatever. And I was just like, all right, maybe next time we don't do a ride along. But
right.
So that was like a big learning curve for me, because the actors had asked me, like, I was a cop at the time, and they're like, so when you're on a homicide, what kind of, what do you do with this? What do you do with that? And do you wear these gloves? Do you wear latex?
Right.
Like, no, we don't wear latex. Like, we wear these, cloth gloves, and they're, because it's sometimes latex gloves leave latent prints. So you can end up leaving your own fingerprints through the latex gloves. There's been a few cases.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that about latex gloves. That
Yeah.
your prints still can bleed through it because they're so thin?
Well, I think it's because the combination of being thin and you put them on and then you sweat like 5 seconds after.
Oh, okay.
And then they get worn out, or they break easily or whatever. And the whole idea behind latex is not just to protect you from bodily fluids, but mostly it's to protect the integrity of the crime scene.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we use these like special cloth gloves, and you can throw them away, or you can wash them, or reuse them, and you don't ever have to worry about your prints getting on anything, and
right.
worry about picking anything up. So
I didn't know. I never knew that.
Yeah. So I told this other actor, so that's the reality of it. So he goes to the prop master, and he's like, hey, prop master, can you get me, like, and the prop master's like, oh, we don't have those, but I'll get my apprentice to go do that. So like in 10 minutes, they come back with the exact gloves that we use.
No way.
Yeah. And I was just like, whoa, this is so cool compared to my life in the real world. You deal with the bureaucracy, bureaucracy in the movie world. It's like, we can make it happen like that.
Right.
And so they had these
snap
gloves.
Your fingers and somebody brings you a Diet Coke.
Yeah. Like, it's just like instantaneous. Everything has to work because somebody invested millions of dollars, and everyone has to,
And dude, that throws me off. Like, I've been fortunate enough to be the talent, on like film sets with the short film I just did. And then like with being a musician, where you do like the Today Show, or you do like a festival, or you're like a supporting act and everything. And it is the weirdest thing from when you're used to like, humping gear and, doing everything DIY. And then all of a sudden there's a day where you're like on set or you're at the show, and it's just like, wait, somebody took all my gear and set it all up? What?
Yeah, right.
And they're like, can we get you anything? And you're like, what? And I'm like, I'm kind of thirsty. And they're like, it's very like, it's very weird. It's a very weird but cool feeling. And then all of a sudden you're just like, hold on, ego, stay in the back, relax, don't get too ahead of yourself. You know what I mean? Where you're like, because I think there was like the one day I was working on set, and this threw me off, made me feel so weird, was when they were just like, I was talking to somebody in the crew, and then they got yelled at for talking to me. And they were like, don't talk to the talent. And I was like, me?
Right. Yeah, right. Which is kind of stupid though, too, right? Like, don't talk to like, it's like, come on. Like, are we all, like, I think we're all in this together.
I know. I was just like, I was just thankful that it wasn't me who was in trouble. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. That's the other thing, is like, it's such a gigantic machine.
Right.
You're like, oh, but yeah. So it's like, so there's the reality where I'm coming from. Like, I'm just thinking, like, first of all, at that point, I don't know anything about the film world.
Right.
This is what this is what I do. And working with the main actor, who was very method, it was like, this is like as real as possible.
Right.
So this other actor who was playing the sidekick, great actor, Josh Peace. He's a Toronto native, fantastic actor, great guy. so he wanted the same thing, method, wanted the actual stuff because he works from the outside in.
Right.
And so they start to shoot the scene where they're investigating a homicide, and the director's like, cut. He's like, Josh, and Josh comes over. He's like, what's up with the grandma old lady glove? He's
Oh,
like, well,
do these cloth gloves look like something your
I look
grandma
like,
would gardener in or whatever?
yeah. So Josh is like, well, Morley said that, and the director's like, oh, he's like, well, so that may be in the real world, but in the movie world, what plays, and what plays is
Oh,
not. So that's the difference. That was my first lesson in real world versus what plays. So as a technical director, you come into a project. Now 7 years later, I know when I look at a script, like typically most of my job is I'll get a script and I'll do a technical pass and I'll say, all right, here's the things that cops wouldn't say or do.
oh, wow.
Technically they wouldn't hold this gun, or you have the wrong gun, or the wrong car, or they don't say this on the radio to each other, or
Right.
like when
So
you
even
serve
with the
people.
dialogue,
Yeah,
you need to come in and kind of go, hey, look, we don't, we don't
no,
talk like that. See, we're
right,
not like
right,
going, the
yeah,
perp is out, we don't really say, wow, that's good. So they want to go through a fine tooth comb. That's why you're in there to be like, hey, make sure you don't have anything technically incorrect
right,
with every
right,
aspect of the job.
right, and then I'll say, and then as far as the motivation or emotional, or like the arc of the character or whatever, I'll say like, you might want to think of this because you know, take technically a cop doesn't do this or that in their life,
Right.
or cops don't think this way,
Yeah.
or they think this way and because of these reasons.
I love the fact that, especially with those two actors, the method actors, and just like what you're talking about, not only what I find fascinating is not only you're talking about props, physical things, and dialogue, but you're also talking about the mentality of what we think as police officers and what they should be thinking as an actor. Because I
Right.
think that's such an important thing with acting is what you're thinking about. Like how they always tell you to not overact, sell it with your thoughts kind of a thing. That's like a
Hmm.
technique. And I think that's like really cool that you go in. So you go in there and go, this is what I was feeling
Hmm.
on a particular homicide case. This is what's
Right.
going through my head. Is it also,
Right.
let me ask this, is that what you talk to them about and go like, hey, not only am I thinking about the case, but I'm thinking about, fuck, I got in a fight with my wife like last
Yeah.
night or today. This is
Yeah.
conflicting me. I also got to do this errand tomorrow, but I got to compartmentalize my thoughts to focus in on this job. Is that something you talk to actors about, of like,
Yeah.
you can let all that ruminate in their head? Does that make sense what my question is?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. A lot of them will ask like, well, is this too, or we'll rehearse the scene together and they'll say, is that too much? Is it over the top, or was it? And
Oh, right. Okay.
and then I've learned through various projects that you have to be careful what you say to actors, because it may not be what the director wants. And
Oh,
and when you come in as a consultant or advisor or technical director, there's probably been months of arguing over what the character may or may not do, or should the story go in this way, or what, there's so many people involved because it is a creative process, right?
right.
And a collaborative process. But you can't, you need that leader, that director who's in charge of the vision, right? And they're in
Right.
charge of executing that vision. So there's plenty of times where you have like a lead actor, depending on the clout that they carry, they may say like, well, I think the story should go this way. And I do not see my character doing this in the third act or the end of the second act. And
Right.
that's a conversation that's been going on back and forth before I come on. And then I know to make sure I'm on the same page as the director always, before I
Right.
talk to the talent about like, well, I would never do this or I would never do that. So
Right.
I've been used plenty of times by both sides where like a director will say, look, we've been arguing about this one line for the last since before pre-production, you would
Right.
just tell them you would say it, and you would, would you say it, and what, whatever, and
So the
or
director's kind of asking you almost like a favor
yeah, so they'll be
because
like,
you're a technical director to be like, can you just tell the actor like you would say this so we can move on with our
yeah.
lives? And
Well,
like,
they're not like, can you just get them to fucking say the line? I'm so
right, right,
sick
right.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
But
they're
I
like,
get it, like, because you're in a tough pickle where you're being brought on. It sounds like to me you're being brought on for your expertise,
mhm,
and sometimes that expertise is like you said, but this plays better. So I mean, I guess you got to be really good at coming in and going, hey, like you can do this. I would never
mhm,
do it. Just to let you
right,
know.
right,
Just throw it. Just food for like it's kind of like food for thought.
yes. Or it's a lot of times too, it can be like, we're in the sticking point, and because either the director, you have two parties arguing, like say the director and the producers and the actor and his agents, right?
Yeah.
And they're at a stuck point, and they're saying like, you know, he wants it this way, he wants A and we want B, and a lot of times it just comes down to the mere fact that neither of them know enough about the subject of
Oh.
what we're talking about, and then I can say like, well, I had a homicide where I did this, but I had another homicide where I did this, and I had another homicide where I did this, and then or I had an assault case where this happened, or
Right.
when I was when I was getting shot at, the first time I got shot at, I thought of this, and then the second time I was shot at, I thought about this, and then they're all like, oh, and then all of a sudden it's like both sides somehow realized they were saying the same thing, or they're both arguing about something that's like doesn't even
Apples
make
and
any sense.
oranges. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
and a lot of times, if it is like a major sticking point, sometimes it'll be like, can you just give them like 5 examples of how that turned out? And
Sure.
then it's like more palatable, I think, to
Yeah.
both parties.
Yeah.
So, but I kind of get used for that, which isn't, I guess, it is what it is.
Right.
But yeah,
That's
it's
so
interesting.
cool.
Yeah, it's
That's
just a weird.
things I think that maybe people I don't think I really thought about that kind of stuff, or maybe a lot of people don't think about it, especially when they're watching a movie. And I think I might have brought this up in our first child episode. Was I was working with a band. We had an easy set, and the music director was making us drill the set like from sun up until sundown. And to me, it was one of those things where I was like, we started talking about it, and I like the fact that people don't know why they like something or they don't know, or why they like something or why they don't like something. But there is a lot of work that we put into as actors and as musicians, all of that, all that motivation, all that thinking, just so that you can sell it right there and then. And
Mhm.
everybody can kind of essentially feel it. They don't know that you sat and talked with the actor and go, hey, this is what I was thinking and feeling. I was either thinking and feeling A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you can go with all that. That fills their head, that fills their body and their emotions to
Mhm.
sell you that scene to make you go, wow, that was a great movie.
Right.
They just, they're believable. It's just a great
Right.
movie. So, and it's all those like little things that I think a lot of people don't realize that we have to put the time in so that
Yeah.
we make something good. Or hopefully we
Right.
make something good.
Right. 1,000 takes just to get the right one, or
Yes.
for a tenth of a second, it looks great, but we had
Yeah.
to do 1,000 takes to get that tenth of a second, right? So,
Oh yeah, for sure.
but yeah,
There was an audition I did a while ago for a commercial, and it was a car commercial, and I don't know why I was brought in because I don't think you want to see me driving the car in the car commercial, but I went in for the audition anyway, and it was one of those I don't know what you call it, but it's just a prop, and it's got the steering wheel, the stick on like a
yeah,
chair. You know
yeah,
what I mean? You ever see that
yeah,
before?
yeah,
Like they want you to use that prop. It doesn't look like a car; it just looks like a shitty wooden steering wheel.
yeah,
And one of the
yeah,
things that thank God I came in later in the day because this casting director was really pissed off because she was like, "All right, I need to explain this to you guys because everybody has been overdoing this. They've been overacting. When
yeah,
you're driving a car, you're not making all these faces, doing all these gestures. You're not really doing that, but you're thinking it. So I just need you to drive the car and just think.
hmm,
Whatever I tell you direction wise, I just want you to internalize it and don't, please, for the love of God, don't overact." And I
yeah,
was like, oh, that's really interesting. So I'm
Yeah.
sitting there holding the pantomime, and she goes, okay, you make a left turn, and you see something that's weird. And you're like, that's out of place. That's odd. But you can't be so, oh, like, oh, that's odd. You just have
Yeah.
to think about it. And the
No.
second you start thinking about it, I think the thing that somebody explained to me was that whether you realize it or not, your facial expression is changing with whatever
Mhm.
you're thinking. And people will
Right.
get it or they'll read it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I
Yeah.
was like, that's a really good tip. Just think it.
Yeah. The camera's able to capture a lot with your eyes
Right.
alone. Right. And
Yeah.
definitely not theater. Right. Like theater acting is different because depending on where the
Right.
audience is sitting, you know, you need to have over expression so that, or over exaggeration so that the audience can understand what's happening at this, if they're in the nosebleeds,
Yep.
and you're projecting your voice differently. Whereas if you're, laved up and you're acting, you can whisper things as long as
Right.
it's appropriate. Like that's the thing. Is it appropriate for what are you doing? And also what genre are you doing? Are you doing
Right.
comedy? Or are you doing, drama? Are you doing something that you have to sell realism and subtlety and everything else? So I think that's
Yeah.
a lot of people forget that, like when you ask like, what's your favorite movie? It's like, I mean, it just
Yeah.
there, like,
That's a loaded question.
right. There's so many.
Our friend Matt Coatsworth asked me that question on my one episode. I wanted to kill him. I was like,
Yeah. Because
my
it's like between
favorite, my
Forrest Gump
favorite.
and
Yeah.
what
Saving
Saving
Private
Private
Ryan.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't name my favorite movie. Like,
No,
that's tough. That's a tough one. Or
no, because
like,
like,
no, go ahead.
yeah, like, I mean, it depends on your mood, depends on where
Sure.
you are at that moment. But, what are the ones you go back to with the classic ones? And, with horror, just a horror alone, are you going to say like Jaws, Alien, uh,
Right.
Don't Breathe? There's a gajillion of them that are all different for different reasons
Right.
because there's so much content. And people are able to create more than they were before, whereas is it fair to compare Jaws to Saving Private Ryan? Or,
No, right. Exactly.
can you compare E.T. to The Godfather, right? Like,
Right.
great movies, arguably, both excellent films, but you just can't, I mean, it's stupid to compare them, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's all subjective. I think you guys got into that too. Like,
Oh,
it's,
yeah, for sure.
you can argue the objectivity of like this great production value, great shots, great texture, great tone. But when it comes down to it, we've all seen that movie that had terrible texture, tone,
Mm-hmm.
and themes, but for some reason it just worked, and you're like, "Wow, this is a great movie." I don't know why,
Yeah.
but
It's like lightning in a bottle.
yeah, right.
It's
You're
just,
just like, should that have worked? I don't know,
yeah.
and it's a shame that studios don't make, indie movies anymore. Like back in the '80s or probably the '90s was like the peak of, you think like all the movies like Highlander
Right.
or all the rom-coms that made it out of the '80s and '90s that no studio would ever make in a million years today, right? Like,
Right.
there's so many iconic, creative, like Blade Runner,
Yeah.
like, they wouldn't make those movies today. I mean, there's just no.
I think about the thing that drives me, like, I just recently watched Back to the Futures, and I say Back to the Futures because somehow I watched the first one. I was like, it just hit me where I was like, it's on Netflix. Let's watch it. I was like, oh, let's
Yeah.
watch Back to the Future. And I watched it and it finished and I was like, I'm not going to watch the second one, am I? Yes, I am. And I watched the second
Right.
one and I'm like, I'm not going to watch the third one, am I? I'm like, yes, I am. And it was just, and it was one of those things where like I've watched it a million times and you're just like, it's just such a good movie. It's
Yeah.
just such a classic and it makes you feel, especially I think if somebody showed you movies and TV shows or music when you were a kid, it brings you right back to that feeling.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, especially like just like being at home, like,
Yes.
because I have an older brother who's 10 years older than me. So that's how that all happened. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yep.
Right. So, whereas
Yep.
it's like, you need to watch this movie. You need to watch Star Wars. You need to watch Indiana
Mhm.
Jones. You need to watch Jaws, Blade Runner, all that stuff. And be like,
Right.
and they're just like, to me, they're like, they're classics. And I'm like, I hate when, and I thought to myself when I watched that movie, I was like, if they try to remake Back to the Future, I'm gonna kill Hollywood. That would be
Yeah,
horrible.
that's
You can't.
stupid.
Yeah, that
No.
would be terrible. What was the thing about with the points on a
Oh, right, right. So
what was I want to know about this. What are points for those who don't know,
so
and what exactly happened?
I don't know if it's the universal term as points or if it's you get three somethings or so
Is it
the
kind of like
so
in sports when a coach gets like, hey, you get 3 timeouts for this game?
yeah, something like that. I think it's
Or,
like
or
that.
or you said it's like a favor, right?
Yeah, like so I think it's on bigger movies, studio movies typically. On my second movie, I found out that it was it was like $100 million movie, so it had
Hmm.
some like four A-list actors in it,
Big
and
movie.
what's that?
Big movie.
Yeah, big movie. And so I got hired on simply because the first technical director had left. And
Oh, okay.
so they were like, well, what do? We have all these questions and we can't answer them. And it just so happened that at Pinewood, they were sharing the same studio or the same office space as the movie that I was currently working on.
Hmm.
And so the execs were talking to each other and said, like, hey, we need a technical director? You guys know anybody? And they're like, yeah, use our guy or
Oh,
whatever.
nice.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was able to hop onto that. And so I was there and same thing. Here's a script. Tell us what you think. Give us some
Right.
technical, like, so, and I had been trained in script writing from some excellent script, like I have been, I don't want to say I was trained, maybe mentored a little bit by Brian Nelson, who did 30 Days of Night.
Oh, okay.
He wrote Devil, the first movie I worked on. Great writer. Like he's a fantastic guy, fantastic writer. And I mean, here's a guy that by all means could have an ego and could be like, I don't have time for you.
Right.
But here's this like dumbass cop, doesn't know anything about movies. Right? I tried like asked him about scripts and like, hey, can I ask you questions about scripts? He could have been like, I don't have time for you. I'm
Sure.
working on 15 different things. But he was kind enough to be like, no, this is why we do this, and this is why we do
No
that.
way.
And then
Nice. That's awesome.
yeah, and then I wrote my first script and I sent it to him. And as terrible as it was, he went through the entire thing and gave me notes from every page. Like that's the kind of
Wow.
guy. So
Wow.
I don't know if that's necessarily being trained, but I would say he gave me a lot of help.
You got like a good, you know, college course education from a
Yeah,
pro. Yeah.
yeah. So because of his kindness, I had a general idea, and then of course, like I like just consumed books and
Right.
seminars and everything else just to figure out how to become a better writer, and then of course just writing every day. And so I'll get scripts and then I can do a technical pass and just and know what I'm talking about versus kind of guessing. So
Right. Right.
I get the script, I'm doing the pass, and then inevitably they're like, we need you on set. So if the actors have any questions or the producers, and so you're in one of those roles where you just kind of sit around and are available, kind of like
Yeah.
props or costuming or whatever. So you hang out with them, and it's great to get to know them and what they do, and it's fascinating. Their jobs are fascinating, and they're interesting people because everyone, I think, when you get to that level, has like killed themselves to be there, and so they all have interesting lives and interesting stories, and so it's really fun to be on set. And then on top of that, magic is happening around you. So you're there, and the main one of the four lead actors was coming, and so it was like a pre-advanced team comes over. It's like these two young college PAs, and they're like, "Oh, just so you know, are you the technical director?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And they're like, "Okay, uh, he's 10 minutes out." I'm like, "Okay, great." And then you get back to your conversation, and then like 5 minutes later, the next advanced team comes in. They're like, okay, 5 minutes to Mr. So and So, 5 minutes to Mr. So and So, and you're like, okay, like the president's coming or something,
Right. Yeah.
whatever. So you're just sitting there waiting, whatever, and then all of a sudden you feel this weird energy, like something big is going to happen, where you're like you have a heightened sense of like all of a sudden your awareness is up, and so you're like, well, something's weird, like because everyone's acting kind of panicky. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden they're like, oh, here he comes. And sure enough, there he is. And he's like surrounded by like 5 or maybe 10 guys. It feels like 20. It feels like there's a mob of people.
Right. Yeah. It's
Comes
Jesus.
in. Yeah. Yeah, and like everyone's around like blah, 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 whatever, and they're yelling at each other and whatever, and he's just like smooth, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
He walks in and I don't remember who it was, but they're like, "Oh, the technical director's here. Do you have any questions?" And I'm sorry, I should back it up. So, like 2 minutes before he gets there, like one of his guys, for I don't know who they are, but they're like, "Okay, so you're about to talk to Mr. So and so. Don't look at him. Don't talk to him. Just stand there. If he talks to you, then you can respond and look at him. But don't make eye contact unless he makes eye contact. Don't talk to him unless he talks to you.
Whoa.
He doesn't like, don't touch him. Don't, I'm just like, what is it? Like, what is
Right.
that? Like, what? So I was like, whatever. So he comes in, they're, cluster around him. And then they say, like, I heard somebody say, like, something technical director. And he had been looking down the whole time, and I think he was eating something at the time or something, right? So he's looking down, he's listening to all these people, and he's like, yeah. And then they're like, technical director had questions for him, and he goes, yeah. He goes, so he comes over and he shakes my hand, and he goes, hey, fantastic. Thank you for coming on and being here. And he put his arm around my neck, and then they're like, people are following, and he's like, get out of here. They're like, or something like that.
Yeah, he's like, this is my new best friend. Fuck you guys. No.
Yeah, he's like, so we go to the side, and he's like, oh, how long you been a cop? And like, just normal conversation, right?
Oh, he's getting to know you a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, like just normal guy. And so not at all what they built him up to be, right?
Right.
Like, let's be honest, I was expecting asshole,
Yeah.
right? And that is anything but. So then we go to his trailer, we're sitting about talking. He's like, tell me the worst thing ever to happen to you on your job, on the job. Like, what's worst thing? He's like, I asked that of everybody, like all cops I work with, what's the worst thing?
No.
And I was like,
wow.
I just met you. Like, I'm glad you're not a dick, but so I'm like, okay, fine. So I lay into him this, like, one of the worst things it's still probably the worst thing I've ever had to do in my life. And he's just like, oh shit. And then all of a sudden he like drops who he was. So this like energetic, nice persona that, you'd want to be friends with. And all of a sudden he's real. And he's just like, so he dropped the facade, and it was just like, oh, here's this normal human being, and he's like, even his like posture changed, and
right.
His voice went from like, oh man, like, oh, you're a really nice guy. No, I'm kidding. He was just like, but all pretenses were gone. And,
right.
And so he's just like nice. And then he got into it. He's like, look, I feel bad for asking this, but every actor, I think every actor, he meant like of his status.
Sure.
Has like 3. He's like, and I've already used 1. And I was like, he's like, I get 3 asks. Like,
oh yeah. Okay.
I get, no matter what it is, I get.
Was I wrong on calling him points?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a name for them, but he's just
why
like,
was I thinking points? Maybe it was just asks. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know.
Maybe points on the back end. Like he's got 3 percentage points.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking points. Maybe I was complete. Sorry, folks. All right. Sorry.
No. It might be called that, but he, so he's like, I already used 1. I think it was on like wardrobe or something.
Sure.
And then he was like, I don't want to use up, because I know by day 20, we're going to be tired. There's going to be stuff that happens. I'm going to need those points or
those asks, those favors, those requests.
So he's like, I just don't believe the dialogue for the rest of from act 2 to the finale, like the big finale at the end of act 2.
Oh, wow.
Like all the kind of unnecessary dialogue that like all the cronies, like FBI agent 1 and FBI agent 2 and bad guy number 1 and bad guy number 2 and like operative 1 and operative 2. So like kind of all the not necessarily background actors, but like the supporting characters that don't have character names.
Right.
There's a lot of chatter back and forth, and he's just like, it's not believable. I know from working on, and he's like, this is an iconic actor. So he's like, I just know from working on other films.
This isn't how. Yeah.
No, he's like, it's not going to play at all. And I was just like, being fresh off the other lesson, I was like, oh, there's a word I know, whatever. Like, it's not going to play. Like I'm like, you're right, it's not going to play. And
right.
So So he's like, can you, if I hook you up with this specific producer, can you tell him that you don't think it works? And would you rewrite those, whatever? And I was like, yeah,
Right.
sure. And so I ended up doing that. And then, he was nice to me, but it was interesting to me that now I knew. So now you get a sense of like, there's these internal struggles and
Right.
politicking in each movie, but that's like, every business is like that.
Everything is like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so let me ask you this. It's almost sounds like, and not to discredit him like he's an evil fox actor, but it's kind of like, it seems like, did you ever feel like, wait, he probably knows he's briefed the way he's briefed. Don't look at him. Don't talk to him. Don't this. He's unapproachable. Like we can't mess with Mr. So-and-so. We can't talk to him. He's not approachable. And all of a sudden he goes, wait, who's the technical director? Yeah, come on, buddy. And he's like, come here. Right. And he's like, let me talk to you. Let me get to know you. And it almost seems like he really like not did it maybe maliciously, but was like, tell me the biggest pull on your heartstrings story so that you feel this total empathy for him. He feels empathy for you. It goes back and forth. And he goes, listen, can I ask you a favor?
Right. Yeah.
So that way you're like, of course, Mr. So is. You know what I mean? Right. It seemed like, did you ever feel like, wow, that totally worked. He totally got me to.
Yeah.
Even though he probably did. Well, even though he probably didn't need to, he probably could have just been like, hey, you're the technical director. And I got 3 asks. I'm down to 2.
Right.
You be the one who asks so I don't lose another ask, you know?
Right. Right. I think, it's possible. I think there was also.
He's a good actor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I also got work from him. Like I got work after that movie too from him.
Oh, nice. That's good. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Maybe,
well, and also maybe it just seems like he wanted to establish a good working relationship.
Yeah, but I think there is manipulation. I mean, look, this industry, whether people are manipulating you and it helps you, or they're manipulating you and it doesn't help you.
Right? It's not necessarily I don't want to say manipulating. It's kind of just knowing how to play the game and knowing how to work it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like my favorite story I heard about that was Motley Crue when they wanted to do the Girls video. They were like, in no way will MTV let us air this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to shoot 2 versions. One is the version we're totally fine with. This is what we want. And the other version is going to be the super over-the-top dirty version that's going to make them go, hell no. So we sent them that one. And by sending them that one, their impression was, we cannot air this. You need to edit it down. And then they sent their original intent second. So that way, as the viewers, the studio was like, or MTV was like, oh, okay, this is nowhere near as bad. We can air this one. And they're like, cool, great, thanks. You know what I mean?
And that's kind of the crazy thing is that like, dealing with like, I don't want to give like everyone, it's easy for everyone to like pick on execs.
Sure.
But, I've had those personally, I've had those encounters later on dealing with like certain scripts or dealing with like AMC or dealing with like, or I should have said AMC. I should make that less obvious. But or
we can
dealing
edit
with
that out. We can edit that out. We can go with you can't even say ABC company as an example because ABC is a real company.
Right. Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3 company.
Right. A network or a studio where you've dealt with execs where they're like, this is, blah, 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 and this would never happen. Or here's a real world example. Dealing with like a high level exec on a horror script. And his first note was, this is a true story. Like he said, it's a terrible script. You don't have the main character. What horror movie doesn't have the main character in the first scene? And I was like, so this, all he does is horror movies, right? And I was just like, Jaws, Alien, Lights Out, Conjuring, you can think of like all these movies off the top of my head where I'm just like, a bunch, like the best. I don't know, like, and isn't it your job to know that? Like, what, so.
Was he dumbfounded by that? Was he like, oh yeah?
He's like,
no, I'm right.
Yeah, he was like, oh, those aren't good movies examples. I just like, Jaws is not like Like we're talking about the greatest horror movie of all time, possibly.
Yeah, I think it's because you proved him wrong, and
Yeah,
he needed a. It's kind of like that classic example of a, you know, when you make something somebody else's idea, it's a good idea. If it's your idea, it's a bad idea. You know, you're dealing
right.
with people like that. But that, I mean, that happens. Like when you're like, I mean, it's not just the entertainment business. It's not just film and music and stuff. It's any job, whether you're a police officer. Everything is. I think everything is political. We deal with that all the time. Anybody I've ever met who works even at, Kinko's. I'm sure Kinko's is
Yeah,
a little political. You know,
yeah,
like what? That guy got promoted to copier before me. He doesn't
yeah,
even,
for
you
sure.
know what I mean?
We're
So
just,
it's like, yeah, we're
I think
dealing with all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting that you're in this world of being like an actor and a technical consultant or technical director, whichever one it is, that you're doing at that particular time. And
yeah,
everybody is, even at the big level, they know how the game is working, what they need to
right.
get, accomplished with. And it seems like, is there like, it's for when it comes to that, does it seem like you've had like good experiences where for the most part across the board it's just like, yep, I get to come in and do my job, and you know
You know,
it's part of
it's
the
I think
job, like it's just like, part of the territory.
I think it's the crazy thing is like it feels like the indies I've worked on are the same. It's just with less stuff. Like it feels
Sure.
like there's less people, less stuff. Otherwise, it's generally the dynamics are kind of the same.
Right.
Um, from my point of view, I think with larger features, you're dealing with people that are certain actors. Granted, not like the James Francos, but like so I worked on 11/22/63, which is a
Oh yeah.
Hulu Bad Robot, Stephen King production, limited series. James Franco is the main character, fantastic guy. Um, he's chill. He's done this like he does this every day of his life for
Right.
20 years, right? Like nothing new to him. And that's that same level as the actor I was talking about before, where they're just kind of like, I get it. This is my job. Like anybody doing any job, they're used to it. They're vets, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then you deal with like, I remember Sarah Gaston was on it, and she's a fantastic actor as well, but she was like super happy to be there. Like there's just a certain level of like gratitude. You just like
Right.
felt happy to be happy for her. Like you're
Yeah.
just like, man, she's so happy. Like she's so energetic. Um, and then talking like another like Gil Bellows was also on that, and he was in Shawshank Redemption and Alec Neal. Been doing it for years, and he was like the combination of the two, where you got this guy that's been in the business for 40 years, right?
Yeah.
Seen it all, done it all, but still very excited. So every time we went somewhere, he was like very polite and gracious, but it was like a calm, excited. So
Right.
I think from an acting standpoint, you do like for me personally, the acting that I've done, you start off in like real shitty shorts with no budget,
Yeah.
and you look bad, and because everyone doesn't know what they're doing, and then
Right.
you work your way up to like little less shitty shorts, and then you're fortunate enough maybe you get cast in a feature, and by that time you're there with the same kind of level of cast guys and gals where you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, I killed myself to get here. I've been through so much shit.
Right.
Get to this point where you're just like so grateful to be there, and then you get your own trailer, and you're like, whoa, this is so cool. And like you were saying before, you like get to sit with the actors, and all of a sudden, coming from a non-acting standpoint, you're like, I don't feel like this is always weird to me. Like the actors get to eat first, and you sit with the other actors. I much prefer to sit with like the crew or the people that
Right.
I'm doing. Like I rather know them. Like I like to spread it so it's even.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
Right. And then so it's just kind of like it's almost like high school with the cliques and everything else.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's
Super
kind of,
excited you're not in junior high anymore, right? You're just like, oh, thank God,
yeah.
I may be a freshman, but I'm not an eighth grader, or
Right.
so that part's nice. And then I think there's been a few instances for me personally where I've got to be on something where, yeah, I have a minor role that may not even have a name, but I'm also getting to act with like a veteran actor who's fantastic who I'll learn from. So I'll
Right.
seize those opportunities, and that came about because I was on like my 5th movie and I'm telling like, okay, so this is how you walk and this is why you do this. And the actor's like, well, why would I do this with my gun? And I'm like, well, because, you're thinking about this and you don't feel like, you don't always
Right.
feel like you're going to be like, I'm going to
It's
shoot
so
this
important
guy.
that it's
Yeah.
so important that you keep talking about that you
Yeah.
won't feel like this.
Right. Yeah. It's not the feeling that you should have
Yeah.
because the audience will pick up. And then somebody behind me was a producer and he's like, do you act? Because why are you telling guys what to do when you could just do it yourself?
You'd be
He's
like
like,
Lee. What's that actor? Lee Ermey? Lee Ermey? No.
oh yeah. He's dead now.
Right. What's his last name? Lee Ermey? Ermey?
Yeah, I know
Oh,
what you're talking. He was in
mess.
Seven. He was in
The
Full
guy
Metal
from Full Metal
Jacket.
Jacket. That's how he got that gig.
Yeah,
Wait, no. What the hell is his name? Let me look it up right now. So I'm not. This is so bad that I can't remember this.
yeah. Like
So wait. Oh, so that's how a lot of that stuff. Arlie Ermey? Am I saying it right?
oh, I don't know.
Arlie Ermey, I guess. Yeah, the drill sergeant. That's how
Yeah.
he got, because he, I think he had to prove to
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick or something like that he could do
Yeah,
the job, because he was just like the actor who they hired. He was like, this guy's not.
right.
He's not cutting the mustard. I know how to do this and everything.
Right.
So you had that happen with you where you're
Yeah, like, and that's how I got into acting because I was like,
no
so
shit.
actually, yeah, that's not true. Actually,
Well, I mean,
yeah, when I was
you
in
were doing
college,
it prior. Okay, yeah.
yeah, so in college I was a theater major, and then by my junior year I was like, I'm not getting any parts. Like, why am I not? And my advisor happened to be the head of the department, and so I was like, why no parts whatsoever? Like, not even background. Like, I'm not even getting back. Like, I can carry a tune. Like,
Yeah.
I can't even be a hippie in Hairspray. Like, what?
Right.
And he's like,
Can I be tree number 3? Damn it.
right, anything. And he's just like, so he gave me the speech. He's like, look, we do traditional plays. We do traditional musicals that are written by Shakespeare and Gilbert and Sullivan and, whoever. He said, you
Right.
just don't have a traditional look. Like, you're not a traditional looking actor.
Which is
And so,
traditional is code for
white,
white.
right? So, you're not white. And he actually said, like, you did really well in that lighting class. Maybe you should think about a career in lighting
My
or
God.
maybe stage manager someday. And I just like,
This teacher
fuck
said this to you.
it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So then the next,
Couldn't it have just been like, hey, you're in the wrong avenue for acting? I don't know. I don't
no,
know how that
like,
works. I don't even know. Like, because I mean, well, you brought this up to me, and I don't know if it's like this was weird because of your ethnicity and your background. You're like, to non-white people, you're white, and then to white
right,
people, you're too ethnic.
right. Yeah. So
Is that something that you've dealt with as an actor to be like, what the fuck, like,
it's weird.
or
It's
it's
weird.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. My background. So like our state's 92% white. And
Mhm.
so I've always been, I'm mixed race. So
Mhm.
I'm BIPOC. So so everyone, like 99% or well 92% of where I'm from just sees me as not white. And
Right.
so I've kind of grown up with like, okay, I get it, I'm not white. And then when you go to LA or New York or wherever else where they actually have a larger ethnic
Right.
BIPOC group, they're like, well, this guy's something, because they're used to seeing whatever, but they see me like, if
Maybe a
you're,
guy like me.
yeah, right, but they'll be like, this guy's white. Like,
For
he's
sure.
not.
Yeah. There's no
Yeah,
question about it. Yeah.
we were casting for a black guy. Like, why, this guy's white,
Yeah.
whatever. It's like,
Hey,
or
we have that same shit with music as far as they're looking for an urban look, and I'm like, well, that ain't me. And I know what that is. Girlfriend I dated a while ago, she's a dancer.
yeah,
She's a white girl, and she was just like, I get all these casting calls for urban type of dancing. And she goes,
right,
the challenges I've had is that she's like, I can do hip hop and pop and lock and all that stuff, but I'm not. She's just like, I'm just white.
right,
And it's not going to, that's not what she's like, I know that's not what they want. You know what I mean? Or, whatever.
right.
I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of code for when it comes to casting where
Right.
what's interesting to me is they'll say, we're looking for this, right? And it's like, well, I'm part that. And then my management company will put me in, and the casting director will say, great, and then I'll do the audition, and then I'll come back where it's like, is he like full-blooded this? Because if he's not, we're looking for a full-blooded
Yeah.
whatever. So it's like I can't win as far as my ethnicity goes, but also if I go for a white part, they're like, well, he's not technically.
He doesn't look like a white guy. We need like a white guy. Yeah.
Right. We need more Italian looking or whatever.
Right.
And they're not gonna say that straight out, but
And what sucks is it's like everybody's opinion is so different because it's like, you can come in. It's like my favorite example that helped me with calming my nerves with auditioning and not getting parts with certain things was the story I heard was Charlie Chaplin entered a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest once and came in third.
Mm-hmm.
So according to those judges, those guys, they were like, no, these other two guys, they look like him. And you're like, but that's really the guy. And they were going, no. Or I heard that story about a sports anchor or a sports announcer, same thing. He read for like some Hollywood thing, whatever the story was. I can't remember. I think my dad told me this was where he was like, in the description, it was like, we're looking for a Bob Smith type of announcer. And he's like, I am Bob Smith. And, and he's like, all right, I'll go audition. And he goes in an audition and they don't give him the part.
Yeah. Yeah. Perception is reality, right?
Right, exactly. So it's just that weird thing. And so it's kind of nice. I mean, it's frustrating, but in a way, that's what helps me mentally as a musician or an actor to go, whatever, I can't, and it's when you hold auditions, your first 5 to 10 seconds of meeting somebody, you're like, oh yeah, he's it, or no, he's not, or she's she's right for the part. It's just something that you just kind of feel, because I've been on that side of the coin, and it's weird.
Yeah.
And then, but again, like it sucks though if you're like coming in for doing what you want to do, but there's somebody else on the other side of it telling you you're not a right fit for something that you're like, no, but this is who I am. Who do you tell me that I'm not, white enough or whatever? Like, it's like, well, you know what I mean? So that's the frustrating part.
So I'm on the flip side of that. They were casting for there's an NBC is doing a series called The Young Rock. And
The Young
Rock, right? And so they're casting for a Young Rock. And
like the Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Yeah, it's his life, like loosely based on his life story, right?
Oh, no way.
So I ended up reading for the Young Rock, and my manager was like, the casting agent is just like, we got to see you. Like, we have to please just audition for this. I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna say how old I am, but I am definitely not 18. Like, there is no, but that's the problem. Like, you don't have, like, how many mixed race rocks are, like, of the rock mix, how many are like him, right? And so they're like, I think they're just like, oh, here's one. We found another one. We've have two now. This guy, he can act. We can get him, like.
Let's see what we can,
Yeah, so I was like, and then, like, so they put the makeup on me and everything to make me look younger and, like, all this, like.
Wow, no way.
And I'm just like, it was a lot of, I think it was a lot of, like, suntan lotion.
Right.
So a lot of suntan lotion and a lot of whatever, because I guess it makes your skin look moist.
Yeah.
And so I had to play, like, I don't even think it was 18. It was like 14-year-old rock. And
14?
Yeah, and I was just like, I'm not gonna, I mean, come on. But
wow.
Of course I didn't get it. But the thing is, I think they get on the flip side of, like, you're not generally this, when they get to something where they absolutely need something like The Rock. They're like, we've got these 5 guys that we can use. Can we make one work? Otherwise, you're gonna have to,
Well, and that's part of their job. They need to give options for somebody to go, no, this can work.
Right.
It's kind of like, in the court of law, you got to throw 99 things against the wall to see if one of them sticks.
Right. So
as trivial as it might be, and as much as you might feel like, I'm not right for this.
Yeah. Well, and maybe I would have been great for the audition, but when I did my slate, I was like, no, I'm kidding.
You do the people's eyebrow and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like,
yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah. So, you know, acting is interesting because acting and I think writing is interesting too. I went through the phase of writing, and writing is interesting if you have, like, for me, both are nice because I feel like I've been restrained as a cop. As a
Right.
cop, I've been restrained and not free to do a lot of things. Writing and acting more so has been like very cathartic and very freeing and
Right.
very safe, where I can have emotions that I've suppressed as a cop
Right.
for a long time. I can actually get those emotions out in a safe environment, and it feels good. Like
Yeah.
it's like the all beyond therapy.
Right, for
But
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but to your point, I've been in writing rooms where people have been like, cops don't say that. I'm like, what the? Are you kidding me? Like,
Yes, we
based
do.
on, yeah, I'm pretty sure we do. Like,
I'm the guy
yeah,
you brought
like,
in to tell
right,
you if you're wrong or right. But
right,
but some people just want you to agree with them,
right.
you
Just
know.
like the stupidest things. And, you know, and I get it too. Like, generally, I got brought in for AMC, brought me in to do some Walking Dead stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right. I wanted to
Um,
talk about that. That's so
yeah.
cool.
So, like, I got brought in, I think, just through more, again, it's who you know, not what you know necessarily, or maybe a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of what you know, but more who you know.
Right.
Um,
And who
after
knows
season,
you?
right. So after season 3, they were looking for a Hurricane Katrina environmental disaster expert, and somehow I was that
Oh,
guy. And I'm like, why don't you hire somebody from New Orleans? Like, why are you talking to? There's plenty of technical directors in New Orleans. Why are you talking to me?
right.
Right? Like, Coatsworth lived there. He could hook you up in a second with probably 20 of them. But
Right. Yeah.
they
Our
got
friend Matt
so
Coatsworth, who's an agent at UTA, he did one of the last episodes. He did episode
8.
8. Yeah, he did
I
episode
don't know. I
8.
just did he do episode 8?
He did episode 8. Yeah. Did you just
Okay.
guess that?
Yeah. I was like,
Yeah, he literally was episode 8. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. Episode 8. Yeah, Matt's episode 8. I think.
because you had that awesome editor guy was the next episode.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Jason Beal was 9, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
Christine was 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know if Matt can teach somebody how to survive. He could probably teach him how to get distracted and talk about
Right.
Canada or like
How to
jazz,
get
New Orleans, drums, and all that.
how to get Brad Pitt elected as mayor.
Yeah, he could help you
Yeah.
with that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would
But
trust him. I actually no, I trust him. I would trust him in the wilderness to know what to do for like a couple of days.
sure. Sure. Yeah. He's good at hiking. But
Yeah,
no,
why
but
not?
like
Yeah.
he could, as an agent at UTA, he could throw you like, here's some technical directors, or he could get you whatever you need.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I think they liked my writing style. They
Mm-hmm.
had a sample of my writing style or some from a friend of a friend or whatever.
Oh no way.
So I ended up getting that gig, right? And
And this was for survival tactics. Am I saying?
just like, I think it was more at the end of the day, I think it was more for press to be able to say, for the showrunner at that time, to say, we consult with a natural disaster.
Or that's what it was. Natural disaster. Sorry.
Yeah, like we take care of that. You know, there's this guy that knows about how to handle natural disasters, and we consult with him, and this is how the human nature would be after a big white. So I
How they
think,
would
like,
act and think and feel and yeah.
yeah. So I don't think I ever got a question regarding that once, but I also got brought in to do Daryl and Merle's backstory.
Really?
So
Oh, I
yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah. So they're like one of the original. So they're from the original series, the original first season. They're not from they're like 2 characters that are not from the original comic series.
Wait, is
So
Daryl and which one's Merle?
Merle's his older brother.
Oh, that's right. Okay, duh.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've watched it.
Yeah. Michael
Heard
Rooker played him.
he
But
was great. He was
yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah. So I got right in to write the backstory. They ended up making a award-winning video game out of it. But when I got brought in to do the story, I'm being brought in, and there's it was like 8 or 10 writers, right? And so I realized I'm the guy that's coming in, and I'm the guy that, like, I'm there because they're not doing the job. Like, that's the mentality, right? Like,
Right.
the only reason they're bringing this guy in is to fix they don't like what we're doing, whatever.
Yeah.
So there's that dynamic already in the room. And so everything I would say, they would be like, no, that's not how it's done. Or no, it doesn't work that way. Or no, like we were even talking about like why he would be able to get into a cop car and get the shotgun. I'm like, well, there's a certain special way you can release the shotgun without having a key. And they're like, no, that's not true. I'm like, based on your years of experience as a cop, right? Like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
okay, fine. Like,
All right.
am I thinking this battle day? Okay, fine. He can't. You know,
I feel like
whatever.
at that point you're the guy coming in like I'm just saying. Like, all right,
Right.
I
Yeah.
told you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like almost got to wash your hands and be like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. Your call.
Yeah.
I'm not here because you're making good calls, but whatever. But yeah, so and it was a little insane because they were pushing like they wanted mechs. They wanted like Daryl to come stumble upon like all these like a science lab that had like these mech suits where Daryl could get into a mech armor and like
Wait, what's a mechs? What's mechs and
like
am I saying that mech suit?
a
What is
mech.
that?
Like remember you saw Avatar, right?
Yeah, a long time ago.
So like the big suits that those guys got in where they're
Oh,
like in
okay.
the cockpit and it's like a gigantic robot kind of,
Oh, that's what that
you
is?
know. Yeah, so like that's a mech suit kind of. Like
Mech.
that's one type of mech.
Got it.
But
Okay.
so that's what they're talking about. Like we'll get into a mech and we'll have him like kill a bunch of zombies. And I'm just like, do you understand the health of the brand of Walking Dead? Like, do you understand the like, I'm not even an exec at AMC, but like I get like that's not part of the brand. That's not part of the, Walking Dead would never in a million years have that. Like, are you insane? Like,
Right.
what? They're like, well, they could. I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
you're on the wrong project. Like,
Right.
this,
Yeah. We need to
so,
like not like do something that feels like it's out of left field and the audience go, what?
yeah, you don't
You
want to
know?
betray your fans.
Right, right. That's what it would kind of feel like, something a little out of left field. Because I think we might have mentioned this on the last. Again, we're doing a redo, so
Yeah.
our brains and our memories are going like this. Where I think it was like kind of like something like The Walking Dead needed to be. It's make believe and it's zombies and it's like but we need a sense of grounding so we can still believe it and watch it and sail on through. You know what I mean?
Right.
You need a little bit of that. It's
Yeah, I
kinda
think
like,
a lot of
yeah.
yeah, like I think you were talking about the girls or whatever, like the girls, the women. Sorry, my bad, totally my bad. You can edit that out. The
What?
women.
Who? Wait, I don't. Wait, the
Yeah,
women,
yeah,
the
yeah.
girls, the
We just
Walking
broke
Dead.
up. Like yeah. No, what we were talking about before, like there's you need verisimilitude with high concept stuff, right? Like if you have,
Yeah.
Walking Dead, the high concept is you got the zombies, right?
Yeah.
And if everything else is as real as possible, that feels there's
We
less
can.
of a suspension of disbelief, right? Like
Right.
I think Richard Donner, great director from the 70s, right? Like he did Superman, right? And he was always like, we need as much verisimilitude as possible when we do Superman, so
Right.
that when he flies, it feels real. Like
Right.
if
It
everything else is
feels real. Yeah.
right. Like he's like, if the helicopter falls off the building, it's got to fall off for the right reasons, and it's got to look real, and it can't be cheesy. You can't have
Right.
any cheese. It's got to be real, and that's
Yeah.
why I think that 70s or 80s Superman stands the test of time is because the story's real. Like you have the great moment where Clark Kent says, like, I have all these powers and I still can save my own father from death or whatever,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, like,
Human empathy.
right. Same thing in Jaws, right? Like there's that moment, you got big fucking shark eating people, won't go away. It's going to jump on a boat. They know that's going to happen. They're going to shoot and it's going to explode, like, whatever.
Right.
That was allowed. The audience wanted that because at some point you had Sheriff Brody sitting down to dinner, really upset, and he has that moment between he and his son, right? Like you have
Yeah.
kid and him. They're not even talking. They're just making faces.
It's that payoff we want.
Yeah, and like because you had the human attachment, you had the human empathy,
Right.
and you're just like, this is fantastic. Like I'm all for action and I'm all for excitement and I'm all for like gigantic explosions and payoffs.
Yeah.
As long as you have to get the audience along to that point.
Yeah.
Because like they're along for the ride, they'll buy anything at the end because they'll want it. But
Right.
you have to have the emotional empathy to the characters. Otherwise, it's how many movies have we seen where you're just like, I don't care, they've killed 500 people, the best friend just died, his wife just died, and you're just like, meh,
Eh,
don't
whatever.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing too is I think we were talking about this, and I definitely want to get into this too. And also for the second part of the show,
Yeah.
we'll go into, because I was just listening and watching Oliver Stone on an episode with Joe Rogan, and he talked a lot about all that stuff with his grievances and complaints of the non-realism with a lot of those war movies and how they amp it up too much to where he was like, I was there, and
Yeah.
you can learn all you want to learn and be advised in school and training, but when it comes down to shit hits the fan, it's like almost all that goes out the window, and people are not these superheroes that they make them out to be, where it gives people this unrealistic expectation of what it is to be a soldier, a police officer, of, you know, they think they're going to be this like hero, and they're going to be, you know, like John Wick, where they, you know, they have like precision, they kill everybody on the first shot, or, you know, they're the loose cannon from Lethal Weapon, and they can, you know, party and
Yeah.
drink, and it gives everybody, like Hollywood gives everybody this false reality of what it's like to be, I guess, in the shit, if there's any other way to put it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, that's it. Like, I guess that's interesting because like to his point about actually being there, you know, the before you do, like, as for me, like, you know, and like any cop, you're not in a void to society before you become a cop.
Right.
You're raised on movies and books and pop culture, just like everyone else, so that, you know, some of you are, like, a lot of us are driven by like, oh, I became a cop because of, you know, Lethal Weapon or End of Watch or Die Hard or whatever. I
Right.
saw those
Yeah.
movies, you know, and I wanted to become a cop because of that. And then you get there, and then there's a little like more reality is set in when you're in the academy, and you're just like, okay, this is the real world. And then
Yeah.
the second you hit the street, you're like, I
This
don't
isn't like the movie.
no, and every training officer you have is like, forget what you learned in the academy. I'm going to
Right.
teach you how to survive the real world. And then you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
and that's it. And then when you, like, the first time I got shot at, I remember the first thing that popped in my head was like, wow, those bullets are just like that scene in Forrest Gump when they're in Vietnam.
Oh, so that was something that felt real, connecting it.
Yeah, I was just like, because that's your only association to it, because it hasn't. I've never been shot at before.
Oh, I see what you mean too.
So the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
time I got shot at, the first thing I thought of was like, it's just like Forrest Gump, like when they're in Vietnam and he's talking about like, this is Dallas and this guy from,
Right. Yeah, and
you know,
it
from
just starts coming
Colorado.
in out of nowhere.
Yeah, and then you
I've
see the
seen.
bullets, like you can see the bullets shooting by,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what it's like when you see someone shooting at you from a far distance. You can actually see the bullet, like, and you're just like, in your head, you're like, I can dodge these, but you know, you can't. But it's amazing because you're like, oh, this is just like this movie, or
What
it's
is?
just like
Yeah.
that movie, or
You kind of
whatever.
associated with it. No,
Yeah,
and
now,
that's bananas. Like how film and television affect us with reality and of what they've been doing and everything. I want to get into. We'll call it right now for the first part of
okay,
this, and we can get into this for the second part.
great,
All that fun stuff and everything.
awesome,
And you'll teach us all how to dodge bullets. I'm kidding.
right.
No. All right. So thank you guys for checking out part 1 of episode 11. We're going to call it right there. See you guys on part 2. Thanks.